The alarm screamed through the monitoring station like a dying animal. Lieutenant Marcus Chen dropped his coffee and ran to his console. His hand shook as he read the impossible data scrolling across his screen. "Get Commander Williams," he whispered. Then louder, "Get her now." The beacon signature was unmistakable. ESS Prometheus. But that ship had vanished 247 years ago. Marcus had studied it in academy. Every human child learned about the Prometheus disaster. It was the day humanity's dreams of faster-than-light travel died. Commander Sarah Williams burst through the door, her gray hair wild from sleep. "This better be good, Chen. I was finally—" She stopped. Her face went pale. "That's not possible." "I checked it 17 times, Marcus said. "It's really them." The Prometheus had been humanity's first attempt at jumping beyond light speed. They had installed an experimental drive, loaded the ship with the best scientists and engineers, and sent them toward the stars. Then in the middle of the jump, the ship simply disappeared. No explosion. No debris, just gone. The galactic community, the ancient aliens who called themselves the Concordants, had told humanity the technology was too dangerous. They offered safer methods instead. Slower methods. Methods that kept humans contained to a small corner of space. Sarah stared at the screen. "Where is she coming from?" "That's the weird part." Marcus pointed at the spatial readings. "She's not coming from normal space. There's some kind of wormhole opening. I've never seen anything like it." On the main view screen, space itself began to tear. Reality folded like wet paper, and through the gap, a ship emerged. The Prometheus looked nothing like the images from history books. Her hull was covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift and move. Lights pulsed along her sides in colors that hurt to look at directly. "Scan her," Sarah ordered. The results made no sense. The ship's power readings were off the charts. Her hull was made of materials that didn't match any known element. And strangest of all, the life signs showed a crew of 312 people. The exact same number that had departed 2 centuries ago. Sarah opened a communication channel. "ESS Prometheus, this is monitoring station Delta 7. Please respond." Static filled the speakers. Then a voice came through, clear and strong. "Delta 7, this is Captain Elena Voss of the Prometheus. It's good to hear another human voice. What year is it?" "It's 2347, Captain. You've been gone for 247 years. There was a long pause. "That's not possible. We've only been gone for 3 years. "Well, 3 years for us." Sarah felt her stomach drop. Time dilation was one thing, but this was extreme. "Captain, where have you been?" Before Elena could answer, new signatures appeared on Marcus's screen. "Commander, we have incoming." "Multiple ships. They're Concordance vessels. A lot of them." 6 massive alien warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They surrounded the Prometheus in a perfect sphere formation. Sarah recognized the lead ship. It belonged to Ambassador Theln himself, one of the most powerful beings in the Concordance. A new voice filled the communication channel. It sounded like grinding stone in winter wind. "Human vessel Prometheus, you are ordered to power down immediately. You carry forbidden technology. Surrender now and your crew will be spared." On the view screen, Sarah saw the Prometheus's lights pulse brighter. Captain Voss's voice came back harder now. "Ambassador Theln, how convenient that you arrived so quickly. Almost like you were waiting for us. Your ship carries weapons from the Harbinger civilization," Theln said. "Technology that nearly destroyed the galaxy once before. We cannot allow it to exist. Weapons?" Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what you told everyone?" "Let me guess, you said the Harbingers were monsters. That their technology was too dangerous for younger species. That you were protecting us all." "Captain Voss, you do not understand what you possess." "Oh, I understand perfectly." Elena's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow felt louder than shouting. "I understand that you've been lying to every species in the galaxy for 100,000 years. The Concordance ships powered their weapons." Energy signatures spiked on Marcus's console. He looked at Sarah with wide eyes. "They're going to fire." "Prometheus, you need to run," Sarah transmitted. "Get out of there now!" "We didn't come back to run," Elena said calmly. "Watch carefully. The Concordance needs to learn that humanity isn't what they think we are." The 6 warships fired simultaneously. Beams of concentrated energy that could vaporize a planet converged on the Prometheus. Marcus closed his eyes. He couldn't watch the ship die, but when he opened them again, the Prometheus was still there. The weapons had passed right through her like shooting at smoke. The ship flickered like a bad hologram, then solidified again. What? Sarah breathed. The Prometheus moved, not with engines or thrusters, but by simply being somewhere else. One moment she was surrounded, the next she was 1,000 kilometers away. Then she was somewhere else again. The concordant ships fired wildly, but they couldn't touch her. Elena's voice came through one last time. Tell Earth we're coming home. Tell them to ignore everything the concordant says. And tell them it's time to remember who we really are. The Prometheus vanished, leaving only the stunned concordance fleet and 2 humans who suddenly understood that everything they'd been taught about their place in the galaxy was a lie. Captain Elena Voss remembered the exact moment everything changed. 3 years ago from her perspective, 247 years ago for everyone else. The experimental drive had hummed with power as her crew prepared for humanity's first faster-than-light jump. Elena had stood on the bridge watching the stars, knowing that success would change everything. Humanity would finally be free to explore the galaxy without relying on concordance permission. Drive charged to 100%, her engineer, James Park, had reported. All systems green. Then let's make history, Elena had said. Engage, the universe had screamed. That was the only way to describe it. Reality itself had torn open around the Prometheus, and the ship had fallen through layers of space that shouldn't exist. They dropped through dimensions like a stone falling through water, deeper and deeper, until finally they stopped. When the shaking ended and the alarms quieted, Elena had looked out at a space that defied understanding. Stars existed in impossible colors, nebulas twisted in patterns that made her eyes hurt. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, were structures. Captain, James had whispered. What are those? The structures were massive, each one the size of a small moon. They floated in perfect formations, connected by bridges of light that pulsed with energy. And they were old. Elena didn't need instruments to know that. She could feel their age in her bones. They're installations, she had said. Someone built a network down here. But who, and why is it hidden? Her science officer, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, had run scans for 3 days straight. What she found had changed everything Elena thought she knew about humanity. Captain, you need to see this, Yuki had said, her voice shaking. The structures are responding to us. They're sending data and they're using human language. Ancient human language, older than any civilization on Earth. The data had told an impossible story. Humans hadn't evolved on Earth, they were refugees. Long ago, at the galactic core, a great civilization had existed. A civilization of humans and their allies. They had discovered the deep layers of space-time, the hidden dimensions where the rules of reality were different. Where faster-than-light travel wasn't just possible, it was easy. But not everyone had been happy about that discovery. A group of species that served the great civilization had grown powerful and jealous. When the humans and their allies tried to share the knowledge with younger species, these servants had rebelled. They called themselves the Concordants. They claimed that the technology was too dangerous, that it would destroy the galaxy. War had followed. In the end, the humans had lost. But before they were destroyed, they had scattered. Some had fled to distant planets. Some had hidden in the deep layers of space. And some had gone to a small blue world at the edge of the galaxy and started over. Their memories wiped, their history forgotten. Earth. They're us, Elena had said, staring at the data. We're the descendants of the people who built this network. And the Concordance has been lying to us for our entire existence. But the installations held more than history. They held technology. The device was the most important discovery. It was a small sphere that fit in Elena's hand. But it contained more processing power than every computer on Earth combined. When she touched it, the device connected to her mind. Suddenly she could see. Not with her eyes, but with her thoughts. She could see the different layers of space-time stacked like sheets of paper. She could see the paths between them, the shortcuts that made normal faster-than-light travel look like crawling, and she could navigate them. It only works with human neural patterns, Yuki had explained. It's locked to our genetics. That's why the Concordants could never access this layer of space. They're not human. They can't use the device. Elena had spent 2 years learning to use the device properly. Her crew had modified the Prometheus, integrating the ancient technology with their ship. They had practiced navigating the deep space, learning to phase between dimensions, becoming something new. Then they had voted. All 312 crew members. Should they go back? Should they tell humanity the truth? Or should they stay hidden, knowing the Concordance would hunt them? The vote had been unanimous. They would return. Now, as Elena navigated the Prometheus through impossible angles of space, dodging Concordance patrol ships, she transmitted data packets to every human colony, encrypted, hidden in normal communication traffic. But once decoded, the packets contained everything. The history, the blueprints, the proof. "Captain, we have a problem," James said from his station. "There's a ship following us. Small vessel. Alien, but not Concordance military." Elena checked the sensors. The ship was keeping pace with them, somehow tracking them even when they phased between dimensions. She opened a communication channel. A face appeared on the screen. It belonged to a Kethri, one of the younger species in the galaxy. Her skin was covered in silver scales, and her eyes were bright orange. "Please don't shoot," she said quickly. "My name is Cyrix. I'm an engineer. I've been watching the Concordance for years, and I think they've been lying to my people too." Elena studied her carefully. "How are you tracking us?" Cyrix held up a small device. "I modified my scanner. I've suspected for a long time that there was something the Concordance wasn't telling us about space-time. When you appeared and they called you dangerous, I knew they were hiding something. Let me help you. Please. Whatever truth you're bringing back, my people deserve to know it too." Elena looked at her crew. They nodded. She turned back to Cyrix. "Then follow us to Earth, but be ready. The Concordance isn't going to let us share this information peacefully." Together, the two ships jumped toward humanity's homeworld, carrying a truth that would shatter the galaxy's oldest lies. Earth's moon hung in the black sky like a pearl, and somewhere on its surface sat the Concordance regional headquarters. From there, Ambassador Thelen controlled everything that happened in human space. Every trade route, every colony expansion, every piece of technology humanity was allowed to develop. Elena Voss stood in the bridge of the Prometheus, staring at her homeworld. She had left as a pioneer. She was returning as a revolutionary, receiving multiple transmissions from Earth. Her communications officer reported, some from the government demanding we surrender, some from civilian groups cheering us on, and, "Captain, there are protests. Millions of people in the streets demanding answers." Elena smiled. The data packets had done their job. Humanity was waking up. A priority channel opened. President Martinez appeared on screen, his face tired and worried. "Captain Voss, I'm ordering you to land at the military base in Geneva immediately. We need to contain this situation before it spirals out of control." "Contain it?" Elena kept her voice level. "Mr. President, we've been living in a cage for our entire history. The Concordance has been lying to us. Don't you want to know why?" "What I want is to avoid a war we can't win," Martinez said sharply. "Ambassador Thelen has 200 warships in orbit. If you don't surrender that device, he'll use them. Then let him try." The connection cut off. Immediately, new signatures appeared on sensors. The Concordance fleet was moving into position, surrounding Earth like a steel noose. Elena felt the device warm against her palm. It was showing her something. Possibilities, timelines. The future branching into 1,000 different paths. She saw the path where she surrendered. The device destroyed, humanity remaining in ignorance forever. She saw the path where she fought. Fire raining on Earth, billions dead. And she saw other paths, narrower and more dangerous but possible. "All crew to battle stations," Elena said quietly. "This is it." Ambassador Thelen's voice filled the bridge, deep and ancient. "Captain Voss, I am offering you one final chance. Surrender the Harbinger device and accept exile. Your crew will be mind-wiped and returned to human society. This is more mercy than your ancestors received," Elena laughed. "Harbinger device? Is that really what you're calling it?" "You know what it actually is, Thelen. It's proof that humanity built this network. It's proof that you stole our legacy and lied about it for 100,000 years." "You understand nothing," Thelen said, and for the first time, Elena heard real anger in his voice. The precursors nearly destroyed the galaxy with their arrogance. They gave dangerous technology to species that weren't ready. Civilizations burned. Billions died. We saved the galaxy by taking control. By enslaving it, you mean, by guiding it. By ensuring younger species developed slowly, carefully, without the weapons that could destroy them. And yes, we benefited. We became powerful, but we also kept the peace. Elena felt the device pulse in her hand. It was showing her Theln's ships, their positions, their firing solutions. It was calculating probable futures, showing her how the battle would unfold. You kept yourself in power. There's a difference. The Concordance fleet opened fire. Hundreds of weapons unleashed simultaneously. The sky above Earth lit up with deadly light. Elena closed her eyes and let the device guide her. The Prometheus phased, slipping between dimensions. The weapons passed through empty space. But Elena hadn't come to run. She had come to fight. Using the device, she calculated firing solutions that shouldn't be possible. The Prometheus's conventional weapons hit with perfect accuracy, targeting engine blocks and weapon systems. Not trying to destroy, just disable. One by one, Concordance ships went dark. "Captain, the Earth Defense Fleet is moving," her tactical officer reported. They're not following Concordance orders. They're forming up behind us." Elena felt hope surge in her chest. On Earth, the military had made their choice. They were standing with the Prometheus. But the Concordance had more ships. Many more. They kept coming, wave after wave, and Elena knew the device had limits. She couldn't phase forever. Eventually, she would tire, and when she did, the Concordance would win. Then something strange appeared on sensors. Small ships, dozens of them, dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They weren't human designs. Elena recognized Kethri vessels, Vorn fighters, even some Trell cruisers. All younger species, all supposedly Concordance allies. Syrinx's face appeared on screen, grinning widely. "Told you my people deserve the truth. Turns out lots of species feel the same way. We've been sharing your data packets. Everyone's been lied to, not just humans. We're done being children." The battle became chaos. Concordance ships found themselves fighting not just humans, but a coalition of younger species all demanding answers. Ambassador Theln's voice cut through the noise, cold with fury. "You are making a terrible mistake. All of you." "Maybe," Elena said. "But it's our mistake to make." Then space itself shuddered. Elena felt it through the device, a massive disturbance in the deep layers. Something was coming. Something enormous. The device showed her calculations that made no sense. Energy readings that exceeded anything in recorded history. A structure emerged from deep space. It was massive, larger than Earth's moon, made of the same strange materials as the installations Elena had found. Lights pulsed across its surface in patterns that looked almost like writing. All weapons fire stopped. Everyone, human and alien alike, stared at the impossible structure. It hung in space above Earth, ancient and terrible and beautiful. Elena touched the device, and suddenly she understood. This was an archive, a vault built by the precursors, by ancient humanity, to preserve their knowledge. It had been waiting for someone to find the device, waiting for someone to activate it, waiting for someone worthy to reclaim the inheritance. Ambassador Theln's voice came through, quiet now, and for the first time afraid. "You don't know what you've done. You don't know what that thing contains." Elena smiled. "Then I guess we're about to find out." The archive opened like a flower. Panels larger than cities peeled back, revealing a core that glowed with soft blue light. The device in Elena's hand grew warm, then hot, then connected to something vast and ancient. Information poured into her mind. Not just data, but memories. The memories of a civilization that had spanned the galaxy. She saw cities of light floating between stars. She saw species working together, sharing knowledge freely. She saw humans, her ancestors, standing at the center of it all, not as rulers but as teachers. And she saw how it ended. "Captain?" James's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Are you okay?" Elena opened her eyes. Tears ran down her cheeks. "I saw them. I saw who we used to be." She looked at her crew. We were explorers, scientists. We discovered the deep layers of space, and we thought it was a gift for everyone. We wanted to share it. On the main view screen, Ambassador Theln's face appeared. He looked older somehow, more tired. "So now you know. Your ancestors were fools who nearly destroyed everything. Were they?" Elena wiped her eyes. "The archive is showing me the full history, Theln. Not your version. The real one." She activated the main display, projecting what the archive was showing her. Images appeared in the air above Earth, visible to every ship in orbit. The history of the precursor civilization played out like a movie. The concordant species had been helpers once. Administrators. Organizers. They were good at managing things. at keeping systems running smoothly. The precursor humans had valued them, relied on them, but when humanity discovered the deep layers of space, the Concordants had seen something else. An opportunity. You convinced us the technology was dangerous, Elena said softly. You showed us examples of civilizations that had destroyed themselves with advanced weapons. And you were right. Some species did misuse the knowledge. But instead of helping them, teaching them, you used their failures as an excuse. The images showed Concordance leaders meeting in secret, making plans, slowly taking control of communication networks, trade routes, military forces. When the precursors finally realized what was happening, it was too late. You orchestrated a war, Elena said. You turned species against each other. You made sure the precursors looked like tyrants who wanted to control everyone, and when they fled or died, you took everything they built and claimed you were saving the galaxy. Thelen's face remained cold. We brought order. We brought peace. For 100,000 years, civilizations have grown under our guidance. No apocalyptic wars. No planets burned to ash. Can your precious ancestors claim the same? Elena felt the device pulse. It was showing her something else now. A choice. The archive held the complete knowledge of the precursor civilization. Advanced technology, weapons, power beyond imagination. The device was asking her what she wanted to do with it. She could claim it all for humanity. Make humans the dominant species in the galaxy. The archive would obey her commands. She could download weapons technology that would make the Concordance fleet look like toys. She could have revenge for 100,000 years of lies, or she could share it. Give every species the same access. Let everyone advance together, without the Concordance controlling who got what knowledge. It would be chaotic. Some species would misuse the technology. Some would probably destroy themselves. But they would be free. Captain, Dr. Tanaka said quietly, the archive is waiting for your command. Whatever you choose, it will obey. Elena looked at Earth spinning slowly below. She thought about all the humans throughout history who had dreamed of the stars, who had wondered if they were alone, who had accepted the Concordance's lies because they had no reason to doubt them. I'm not going to claim the archive for humanity, she said finally. That's not who we are. That's not who we're supposed to be. She touched the device and sent her command. The archive's defenses dropped. Its knowledge base opened. And most importantly, its access codes broadcast across the entire galaxy. What have you done? Thelen whispered. I've given everyone the same choice our ancestors wanted to give, Elena said. Learn, grow, make your own mistakes and your own successes. The archive belongs to everyone now, including the Concordance species if you want it. Alarms blared across every Concordance ship. Their control systems were receiving new data, technological specifications, scientific theories, the complete map of the deep layer networks, everything the Concordance had spent 100,000 years hiding. But the archive gave one more gift. Defense systems activated across the galaxy. Ancient installations that had been sleeping for millennia woke up. They weren't attacking anyone. They were just there, making it impossible for any single species to destroy the archive sites by force. You've doomed us all, Thelen said, but his voice was shaking. Without guidance, without control, civilizations will destroy themselves. The burning will come again. Maybe, Elena admitted, but it will be our choice. Every species' choice, not yours. Syrinx's face appeared on screen alongside a dozen other younger species representatives. Captain Voss, on behalf of the Kethri people, thank you. We've been waiting for someone to break the Concordance's control. Now we finally have a chance to determine our own future. More voices joined in, species from across the galaxy, all speaking at once, all thanking humanity for the gift of freedom. It was overwhelming. Elena felt tears in her eyes again, but she also saw Thelen's face. The old ambassador looked defeated, but there was something else in his expression. A hint of relief, maybe, or maybe just exhaustion from carrying a lie for so long. Ambassador, Elena said quietly, this doesn't have to be the end of the Concordance. You could help us, actually help us, not control us. Your species has experience managing galactic civilization. That knowledge is valuable. But you have to share power now. You have to accept that younger species aren't children anymore. Thelen was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. You are offering us a place in your new order? After everything we have done? I'm offering everyone a place, Elena said. That's the point. No more rulers. No more servants. Just equals working together. The ambassador's face disappeared from the screen. Elena didn't know if he would accept, but she had done what she came to do. The truth was out. The archive was open, and humanity had proven something important. When given ultimate power, they had chosen to share it. That, Elena thought, was something worth coming home for. 6 months after the archive opened, Elena Voss stood in the observation deck of the Prometheus and watched the galaxy change. Earth's orbit was crowded now. Ships from 100 different species came and went constantly, all seeking access to the archive, all wanting to learn. Some came peacefully. Others argued and fought over what technology should be developed first. It was messy and chaotic and beautiful. "Captain, we have another situation," James said, walking up beside her. His voice was tired but amused. "The Vorn delegation is fighting with the Kethri engineers again. Something about proper safety protocols for deep space navigation." Elena sighed. "Tell them I'll mediate in an hour again." She smiled despite her exhaustion. "You know, I used to think coming back would be the hard part. Turns out running the aftermath is much more complicated." The archive sites across the galaxy had activated simultaneously, just as Elena had intended, but with that activation came problems. Some species tried to claim entire archive sites for themselves. Some downloaded weapons technology and immediately started threatening their neighbors. Some, overwhelmed by the flood of information, simply shut down and refused to engage. And some had destroyed themselves. 3 civilizations so far had rushed into using technology they didn't understand. Their planets were gone now, turned to ash by their own weapons. Each time it happened, Elena felt the weight of those deaths. Had Theln been right? Had she doomed the galaxy by giving everyone freedom? "You're thinking about the Miroth again," James said quietly. Elena nodded. The Miroth had been the first to die. They had downloaded weapons technology and immediately used it against their neighboring species. The neighbors had fought back using newly acquired archive tech. Both civilizations had burned in the resulting war. "I could have prevented it," Elena said. "I could have kept control of the archive. Released technology slowly, carefully, the way the Concordance did, and become exactly what we fought against." James finished. "Captain, you made the right choice. We can't protect people from themselves. All we can do is give them the chance to be better." A new ship appeared on sensors. Elena recognized it immediately. Concordance design, but smaller than their usual warships. A diplomatic vessel. The communication request came through a moment later. Ambassador Theln's face appeared. He looked different than the last time Elena had seen him. Smaller somehow. More human despite his alien features. "Captain Voss, I request permission to dock." Elena raised an eyebrow. "You're asking permission now? That's new." "Many things are new," Theln said, and there might have been a hint of humor in his voice. "May I come aboard? I have a proposal." 20 minutes later, Theln stood in the Prometheus's conference room. He was accompanied by Syrinx and representatives from a dozen younger species. They all looked nervous. Even Theln, who had once commanded hundreds of warships, seemed uncertain. "Captain," Theln began, 6 months ago you offered the Concordance a place in your new order. I rejected that offer. I believed you were destroying everything we had built, and now?" Elena asked. "Now I see that perhaps control was not the same as guidance. Perhaps we forgot the difference." Theln took a deep breath. 3 more species destroyed themselves this week. The Vorten used archive weapons on their own people during a civil war. The Delics tried to modify their genetics with precursor technology and created a plague that killed billions, and the Zareth simply couldn't handle the knowledge that their entire history had been manipulated by us. Their civilization collapsed into chaos. Elena felt sick. "I know. I've been tracking it. The younger species have asked me to speak on their behalf." Theln continued. He gestured to Syrinx and the others. "They want to propose a new concordance. Not one that rules, but one that advises. Species who have experience with advanced technology helping those who are just beginning. Voluntary, transparent, democratic." Syrinx stepped forward. "We don't want to lose more civilizations, but we also don't want to go back to being controlled. We need a middle path. Someone to help us, not command us. And you think the old concordant species can do that?" Elena asked skeptically. "After everything they did? Who better?" Syrinx said. "They have 100,000 years of experience managing galactic civilization. They know what mistakes to avoid because they've seen them before. Yes, they lied and controlled us, but they also prevented apocalyptic wars. We need that wisdom." We just need it to come with honesty this time. Elena looked at Theln. And you agree to this? To having your power limited? To being equals instead of rulers? Theln was quiet for a long moment. My species has been rulers for so long, we forgot what it was like to be anything else. But I have been watching you, Captain. Watching humanity. You were given ultimate power 6 months ago. The Archive would have obeyed any command you gave. You could have made humans the dominant species in the galaxy. That's not who we are, Elena said. Precisely, Theln said. You chose partnership over domination. You chose truth over control. And when species destroyed themselves with the knowledge you gave them, you mourned them instead of saying, I told you so. That is what leadership should look like. That is what we should have been for the past 100,000 years. He bowed his head. I cannot undo the past. My species cannot take back the lies we told or the freedom we stole, but we can try to be better going forward. If you will allow it, Elena looked at her crew. James nodded. Dr. Tanaka smiled. They had talked about this possibility. Hoped for it even. All right, Elena said. Here's what we're going to do. We form a new galactic council. Every species gets representation. Equal representation. The old concordant species can serve as advisors, sharing their experience. But they don't get to make decisions for everyone else. Agreed? Theln nodded slowly. Agreed. And all archive sites remain open to everyone. No restrictions. No control. If a species wants to access dangerous technology, we can advise against it, but we can't stop them. They have to be free to make their own choices, even bad ones. That will lead to more deaths, Theln said quietly. I know, Elena said, and her voice was heavy. But the alternative is going back to the cage, and humanity is done living in cages. If other species want freedom, they have to accept the responsibility that comes with it. Over the next few weeks, the new Galactic Council formed. It was messy and loud and inefficient. Species argued constantly. Proposals got shot down. Compromises were reached and then immediately broken. But it was real. It was democratic, and it was theirs. 3 years later, Elena stood in the same observation deck watching the galaxy again. The chaos had calmed somewhat. Some species had advanced rapidly with archive technology. Others had chosen to move slowly, carefully developing over decades. And yes, more civilizations had destroyed themselves. Each death hurt, but more had survived. More had thrived. Syrinx joined her, carrying 2 cups of something that smelled like coffee but probably wasn't. Thinking deep thoughts again, Captain? Elena smiled. Just wondering if we did the right thing. We're alive. We're free. We're learning and growing and making our own mistakes. Syrinx handed her the cup. What more could anyone ask for? Peace. Safety. Knowing that we won't wake up tomorrow to news of another species destroying itself. Those things have to be earned, Syrinx said. They can't be forced. The old concordance tried force for 100,000 years. It kept things stable, but it kept them small. Now we're growing. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, some of us won't make it. But the ones who do will be stronger than we could ever have been under concordance control. Elena sipped her drink. It was terrible. She smiled anyway. When did you become wise? I learned from humans, Syrinx said with a grin. You're very good teachers. The device hummed in Elena's pocket. She had kept it, though the archive had offered to make copies for other species. Some things, she felt, should remain unique. The device showed her the future sometimes, not certain futures, just possibilities. And what she saw gave her hope. She saw civilizations rising, species working together, the galaxy slowly becoming what the precursors had wanted it to be, a community of equals, learning and growing together. It wouldn't be perfect. There would be wars. There would be failures. But there would also be triumphs. And humanity would be there, not as rulers but as partners, as teachers who were still learning themselves, as explorers who had found their way home and then helped others find their own paths. That, Elena thought, was what it really meant to be human, not to dominate the galaxy, not to control it, but to give everyone the chance to be free, even if freedom was dangerous, even if freedom sometimes hurt. The Prometheus's engines hummed. They were heading out again tomorrow, exploring new archive sites, meeting new species, helping where they could. The ship that had vanished 250 years ago was now humanity's representative to the galaxy, a symbol of what could be accomplished when you refused to give up, when you chose partnership over power. Elena looked out at the stars and smiled. They were finally free. All of them. And that made all the chaos, all the danger, all the struggle worth it. That was the real victory, not the return of the Prometheus, not the opening of the archives, but the simple fact that when humanity was given a choice between being rulers and being friends, they chose friendship, and in doing so, they showed the galaxy what it meant to be truly strong. Steve Harrison stood at the viewport of the transport ship, watching as the massive council station grew larger against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars. His heart beat faster, but his face remained calm. As Earth's first representative to the Galactic Council, he carried the hopes of 8 billion humans on his shoulders. "We're beginning docking procedures, Dr. Harrison," said the pilot, an alien of the Tauran species who had been assigned to transport Steve from the edge of Earth's solar system. Steve nodded. "Thank you, Captain." The Tauran made a clicking sound. That Steve had learned was their version of acknowledgement. In the 3 weeks since first contact, Steve had studied everything available about galactic politics and the 12 species that form the Council. As Earth's leading physicist and a former military strategist, he had been chosen not just for his scientific understanding, but for his calm demeanor under pressure. The ship docked with a gentle bump. Steve adjusted his simple blue uniform and gathered his notes. Earth had only discovered faster-than-light travel 6 months ago, but that discovery had immediately brought attention from the wider galaxy. Most humans were still adjusting to the idea that they weren't alone in the universe. 2 tall, slender aliens with iridescent skin waited for Steve as he exited the ship. They were Ilarians, known for their diplomatic roles. "Dr. Harrison of Earth," one said in a melodic voice. "I am Zil. This is my colleague Nara. We will escort you to the council chambers." Steve followed them through corridors filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some looked almost human, while others defied description. Many turned to stare at him. Humans were new to the galactic stage, and curiosity was natural. The council station was enormous, a city and space housing representatives from thousands of worlds. But real power rested with the 12 elder species who had formed the Galactic Council millennia ago. Earth was seeking protected status, the first step toward eventual council membership that would protect humanity from exploitation. The trio approached an enormous doorway, inscribed with symbols from a dozen different languages. "The council is ready for you," Zil said. "Remember the protocol. Speak only when addressed directly. Bow to the Zilarian ambassador first, as they currently hold the leading position." Steve took a deep breath and nodded. The massive doors slid open soundlessly. The council chamber was a vast amphitheater with 12 elevated platforms arranged in a circle. Each platform held representatives of one elder species. In the center was a small speaking area where Steve was directed to stand. "Introducing Dr. Steve Harrison of Earth, requesting protected status for his homeworld and species," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Steve looked up at the 12 platforms. Each species was dramatically different from the others. The Zilarians were massive, almost bear-like creatures with 6 limbs and gleaming silver fur. Their ambassador, identified by ceremonial armor, leaned forward to study Steve. "So this is a human," said the Zilarian ambassador, his voice deep and rumbling. "I am Ambassador Virnath. You may address the council and explain why Earth deserves our protection." Steve bowed respectfully. "Honorable council members, I bring greetings from Earth. Our world has recently achieved faster-than-light capability and seeks peaceful integration with the galactic community. We request protected status while we develop our understanding of interstellar politics and trade. We offer our unique scientific and cultural perspectives in exchange." Steve presented Earth's scientific achievements, artistic contributions, and philosophical development. He had practiced this speech extensively, knowing how important this moment was. When he finished, he stood quietly, waiting for the council's response. A long silence followed. Then Ambassador Virnath began to make a strange huffing sound. With a shock, Steve realized the ambassador was laughing. "You call that achievement?" Virnath said. "Your species took over 100,000 years to discover principles that are taught to Zilarian children. You fight meaningless wars over resources that the galaxy has in abundance. Your art is primitive. Your philosophy is childish. Other council members shifted uncomfortably, but none spoke up. Vernath continued, his voice growing louder. Humans are primitive apes barely worthy of recognition. You stumbled upon faster-than-light travel by accident, not through genuine understanding. Your application for protected status is denied. The chamber fell silent. Steve felt blood rush to his face but maintained his composure. Ambassador, with respect, I believe you may be underestimating. Silence, roared Vernath. You have no standing to question the Council's judgment. Earth will receive no protection. Any species with the capability may establish resource extraction, operations in your system as they see fit. Perhaps in another 1,000 years you may reapply. Several council members shifted uncomfortably, but none contradicted the Zilarian. Then, to Steve's horror, Vernath began laughing again, and gradually other council members joined in. The chamber filled with alien laughter, directed at Steve and, by extension, all of humanity. In that moment, something shifted in Steve Harrison. The embarrassment was replaced by cold determination. 20 years in military intelligence had taught him to recognize strategic opportunities, and the Council had just created one by severely underestimating humans. The Council has spoken, intoned the announcement voice. Earth's application is denied. This session is concluded. Steve bowed stiffly and turned to leave. As he walked from the chamber, the laughter gradually subsided. One council member, a gaseous being contained in a transparent sphere, floated down from its platform and approached him. Dr. Harrison, the being said in a whispered tone, not all of us agree with the Zilarian position. Ambassador Vernath has grown arrogant over centuries of leadership. I am sorry for this outcome. Steve nodded. Thank you for your kindness. May I ask your name? I am Ambassador Nilara of the Mist Collective. Remember it when Earth recovers from this setback. I will, Steve promised. As he walked back to his transport ship, Steve's mind was already racing. The Council had made a critical error. They had not just rejected Earth's application, they had revealed their contempt and arrogance. More importantly, they had shown they didn't understand humans at all. In the privacy of his quarters aboard the transport ship returning to Earth, Steve began making notes. The Council's dismissal meant they considered Earth harmless. Their laughter meant they didn't respect human capability. Their open declaration that Earth was unprotected was practically an invitation for exploitation. All these were mistakes that a military strategist could use. Steve activated his secure communication link to Earth. Connect me to President Weber, Priority Alpha. When President Allison Weber's face appeared on the screen, Steve's expression was grim. Dr. Harrison, how did the Council meeting go? Madam President, Steve replied, we have work to do. The Council has made a fatal mistake. The White House Situation Room was silent as Steve finished his briefing. President Allison Weber sat at the head of the table, her expression grave. Around her sat the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of Defense, and the Director of Intelligence. Let me be clear, President Weber said, breaking the silence. The Galactic Council has not only denied us protection, but has essentially told other alien civilizations that Earth is open for exploitation? Steve nodded. Yes, Madam President. Without protected status, any spacefaring race can enter our system and claim resources, including Earth itself. General Greg Mason, chair of the Joint Chiefs, leaned forward. How much time do we have before someone takes advantage of this? Unknown, Steve replied. But I observed at least 3 representatives from resource-hungry civilizations making notes during the announcement. I would estimate weeks, not months. Defense Secretary Fiona Diaz slammed her hand on the table. Our current defenses are useless against their technology. We've barely begun to understand faster-than-light principles, let alone weapons that could match theirs. Then we need to think differently, Steve said quietly. All eyes turned to him. During my time on the Council station, I observed their technology closely. I believe we have an advantage they don't expect. What kind of advantage? Asked General Mason. Their arrogance, Steve said. The Zilarians and other council races rely heavily on gravitational manipulation technology. It's the foundation of their faster-than-light drives, their weapon systems, even their everyday tools. But they've been using it so long, they've stopped innovating. The principles are actually quite similar to theories I was working on before first contact. President Weber studied Steve carefully. What are you suggesting, Dr. Harrison? A new weapon system, one that targets the fundamental principles their technology relies on. Steve pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. It projected a hologram showing complex equations and diagrams. I've been developing theories about quantum entangled gravitational fields for years. With what I've learned from observing council technology, I can now build devices that disrupt their gravitational systems. The room was silent again as the implications sank in. You're talking about creating a weapon that could disable their ships? General Mason asked. Not just ships, Steve said. Potentially any technology that relies on gravitational manipulation, including planetary defense systems. President Weber stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Washington Monument, in the distance. The ethical implications are significant, Dr. Harrison. This could harm civilians, not just military targets. With respect, Madam President, the Council has already decided our civilians are fair game, Steve replied. But I understand your concern. I believe we can calibrate these devices to target specific systems while minimizing collateral damage. The President turned back to the room. How long would it take to develop this technology? 6 months for a prototype. Perhaps a year for a deployable system. We may not have that long, said Intelligence Director Paula Jordan, speaking for the YAO. First time, our deep space monitoring stations have detected increased activity at the edge of our solar system. Someone's already scouting us. President Weber returned to her chair and sat down heavily. Dr. Harrison, you have full authorization to create a development team. General Mason will provide whatever military resources you need. This is now Project Safeguard, classification level Alpha. I'll need a team, Steve said. Starting with Dr. Olivia Carter from MIT. Her work on quantum field theory is essential to this project. Done, the President said. Who else? Colonel Ryan Blackwood from Strategic Command. His tactical experience will be crucial for weaponizing the technology effectively. General Mason nodded. Blackwood is one of our best. I'll have him reassigned. Immediately. We should also maintain diplomatic channels, Steve added. Ambassador Nilara of the MISC Collective showed sympathy to our cause. They might provide valuable intelligence. I'll assign Natalie Pham from State Department, the President said. She's our best diplomatic officer and has been studying the alien communication protocols since first contact. The meeting continued late into the night with plans forming rapidly. By morning, Project Safeguard was officially underway, with a secure facility being prepared beneath the Rocky Mountains. 3 weeks later, Steve stood in the main laboratory of the Project Safeguard facility. Around him, dozens of scientists and military personnel worked at advanced computing stations. Dr. Olivia Carter approached, her red hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. The quantum entanglement chamber is ready, she reported. But I'm still not convinced your equations will translate to physical reality, Steve smiled. That's why we have you, Olivia. Your practical approach balances my theoretical work. On the other side of the lab, Colonel Ryan Blackwood was studying holographic displays of the solar system. Harrison, he called out, you should see this. Steve and Olivia joined him at the tactical display. Blackwood pointed to a cluster of signals at the edge of the solar system. 7 vessels just dropped out of faster-than-light travel, Blackwood explained. They're moving slowly but definitely heading toward Earth. Configuration? Steve asked. Based on the signatures, they match what you described as Zilarian mining vessels. Looks like they're coming to start harvesting operations. Steve studied the display. Earlier than expected, we need more time. Time's something we don't have, Blackwood said grimly. Steve thought for a moment, then turned to Olivia. We need to accelerate the timeline. How close are we to a working prototype? We've managed to create stable quantum entanglement between 2 gravitational fields, she replied. But we haven't tested disruption yet. Then let's test it on our visitors, Steve said. He turned to Blackwood. Can we deploy a small satellite in their path without being detected? Blackwood considered this. We've been developing stealth technology based on your insights into their sensor systems. It's untested, but might work. Do it, Steve said. We'll build a simple version of the disruptor and place it on the satellite. If it works, we'll disable one of their ships and capture it intact. And if it doesn't work? Olivia asked. Then we learn from failure and try again, Steve replied. But we're running out of options. 3 days later, a small, stealthy satellite was deployed from Earth's lunar base. It positioned itself in the path of the approaching Zellarian fleet, its systems dormant to avoid detection. In the control room of Project Safeguard, Steve, Olivia, and Blackwood watched tensely as the lead Zellarian vessel approached the satellite's position. Activating quantum disruptor in 3, 2, 1. Olivia counted down and pressed the activation control. On the display, the lead Zellarian ship suddenly stopped moving. Then it began to drift aimlessly. It worked, Blackwood whispered. Their gravitational systems are offline. The other Zellarian ship stopped, clearly confused by what had happened to their leader. Steve picked up a communication device. This is Dr. Steve Harrison of Earth to Zellarian vessels. Your lead ship has been disabled as a demonstration of our capabilities. Retreat immediately or face similar consequences. There was a long pause. Then the remaining Zellarian ships turned and began accelerating away from Earth. They're running, Blackwood said with satisfaction. No, Steve corrected him. They're going to report to the Council. We've just announced our presence as a threat. The real fight is about to begin. President Weber's voice came over the communication system. Dr. Harrison, the Security Council is viewing this feed. What you've accomplished is remarkable, but you've also started something we can't step back from. With respect, Madam President, Steve replied. The Council started this when they declared us unworthy of protection. Now we're showing them exactly what humans are capable of. Olivia looked at Steve with concern. What's our next move? Steve's expression was determined. We study that captured ship and enhance our technology. Then we send the Council a message they can't ignore. 1 month after capturing the Zellarian mining ship, the Project Safeguard facility buzzed with activity. The alien vessel sat in an enormous hangar, surrounded by scientists and engineers studying every inch of its technology. Steve walked through the busy workspace, nodding to team members as he made his way to the main conference room. Inside, Dr. Olivia Carter was presenting findings to Colonel Blackwood and a group of military officials. She looked up as Steve entered. Perfect timing, she said. I was just explaining how the Zellarian gravitational drive works. Steve took a seat. On the display screen, detailed schematics of the alien ship rotated slowly. The technology is actually less advanced than we expected, Olivia continued. They've been using the same systems for centuries with only minor improvements. It's efficient, but not innovative. Can we adapt it? Steve asked. Already have, Olivia replied with a smile. She pressed a button, and the display changed to show a small device about the size of a coffee mug. This is our enhanced quantum disruptor. It's 10 times more powerful than our prototype, and can be mass-produced using Earth materials. Colonel Blackwood leaned forward. Range? The prototype had a range of 1 kilometer. This version can affect gravitational systems up to 50 kilometers away, and we've made it directional, so we can target specific ships or installations. Steve nodded with approval. Production status? We've built 20 so far. With the current facilities, we can make about 5 per day. Colonel Blackwood tapped his fingers on the table. Not enough if we face a full Council fleet. We need to scale up. The door opened, and Natalie Pham walked in. As Earth's diplomatic officer assigned to alien relations, she had been making quiet contacts with potential allies among the non-Council races. Sorry to interrupt, she said, but I have urgent news. My contact in the Mist Collective just informed me that the Council is holding an emergency session about Earth. Ambassador Vernath is demanding immediate action against us for capturing a Zellarian vessel. The room fell silent. What kind of action? Steve asked. Military intervention, Natalie replied. The Council is preparing a battle fleet. And worse, they're auctioning off Earth territories to member races in advance. They're treating our planet as already conquered. Colonel Blackwood slammed his hand on the table. We need more time. Our defenses aren't ready for a full invasion. Steve was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he looked up. We don't need to fight their entire fleet. We need to send a message they can't ignore. Something to make them reconsider. What are you suggesting? Olivia asked. A demonstration, Steve replied. Something visible, something dramatic, but not directly harmful to any sentient beings. He turned to Natalie. Does your contact have information about Zellarian territory? Natalie nodded. Some. What are you looking for? An uninhabited moon or asteroid with Zellarian mining operations. Automated only, no workers. Natalie consulted her tablet. There's Zeta 9, a moon in the Zellarian home system. It's rich in rare minerals but toxic to most life forms. They use automated mining drones there. Perfect, Steve said. He looked at Colonel Blackwood. Can we deliver a package to Zeta 9? The colonel thought for a moment. Using the FTL drive from the captured ship, yes, we've nearly finished reverse engineering it. We could send a small stealth vessel. Do it, Steve ordered. We'll place our most powerful disruptor on that moon. When activated, it will collapse. The local gravitational field. The effects would be catastrophic, Olivia warned. The moon would essentially tear itself apart. Exactly, Steve said. It will be visible across half the galaxy. A warning shot that the Council can't ignore. 2 weeks later, a small Earth vessel with a modified Zellarian drive arrived at Zeta 9. Using stealth technology developed from studying the captured ship, it approached undetected. A single package was deployed to the surface, landing near the largest automated mining facility. The Earth ship then retreated to a safe distance. In the Project Safeguard Command Center, Steve, Olivia, Blackwood, and Natalie watched the live feed from the ship's cameras. The package is in position, reported the mission commander. Awaiting activation order. Steve looked at President Weber on the main screen. She had been watching from the White House Situation Room. Madam President, do we have your authorization? President? Weber's face was solemn. Are you certain there are no living beings on that moon? Absolutely certain, Natalie confirmed. Our intelligence from the Mist Collective is clear. Only automated systems. The President nodded slowly. Then you have my authorization. Proceed. Steve turned to the mission commander. Activate the disruptor. On the display, the small package on Zeta 9's surface began to glow. Energy readings spiked dramatically. Gravitational field destabilizing, Olivia reported, watching her instruments. The effect is spreading faster than we predicted. The video feed showed the surface of Zeta 9 beginning to crack. Huge fissures opened up, spreading like spiderwebs across the gray landscape. The automated mining facilities began to collapse as the ground beneath them shifted. Energy readings continuing to climb, Olivia said, her voice tense. The reaction is self-sustaining now. On the screen, the destruction accelerated. Entire sections of the moon's surface broke apart, floating upward as local gravity failed completely. Mining facilities shattered into pieces. Within minutes, what had been a solid moon was transforming into a spreading cloud of debris. My God, whispered President Weber. Colonel Blackwood's expression was grim but satisfied. The Council wanted to know if humans were a threat. I think we've answered that question. Send the message, Steve instructed Natalie. Natalie activated the communication system. Using protocols learned from their Zellarian captives, she transmitted a simple message on all Council frequencies. Reconsider Earth's status. The response came 3 days later. Earth's deep space monitoring stations detected a massive fleet departing from the Council homeworlds, heading directly for the solar system. 57 vessels, Colonel Blackwood reported during an emergency meeting, including what appears to be the Zellarian flagship. Time to arrival, approximately 2 Earth weeks. President Weber looked exhausted. They didn't take the warning. They're coming in force. No, Steve said, surprising everyone. They took it exactly as I expected. The Council, especially the Zilarians, are too proud to negotiate after being threatened. They had to respond with force. How is this good news? Asked Secretary Diaz. Because they're bringing their best ships, their best technology, Steve explained. And thanks to what we learned from that mining vessel, we know exactly how to disable them all at once. He looked around the table. It's time for Phase 3. We've prepared the trap, and they're walking right into it. What trap? President? Weber asked. Steve smiled for the first time in days. The one that will end this war before it truly begins. The Council has underestimated humans for the last time. The mood at Project Safeguard was tense but focused as the Council fleet approached Earth. In the 2 weeks since the destruction of Zeta 9, every resource had been directed toward preparing Earth's defenses. Factories around the world worked, around the clock, to produce quantum disruptors based on Dr. Carter's designs. Steve stood in the command center, studying the massive holographic display of the solar system. Red dots representing the Council fleet had just passed the orbit of Neptune. They'll reach Earth in approximately 6 hours, Colonel Blackwood said, joining Steve at the display. Our satellites are in position. Everything is ready. Steve nodded. And the civilians? Evacuation to the underground shelters is 90% complete, Blackwood replied. The public announcement about an imminent meteor shower worked as planned. Most people have no idea what's really coming. President Weber entered the command center, flanked by her security detail. The room fell silent as she approached Steve and Blackwood. Dr. Harrison, she said, this is the moment of truth. If your plan fails, and it won't, Steve interrupted, then added more respectfully, Madam President, the Council has followed the exact pattern I predicted. They're arrogant and set in their ways. That's why they'll fall into our trap. The President didn't look convinced. I hope you're right. The future of our species depends on it. The massive Council fleet moved through the solar system in tight formation. At its center was the Zilarian flagship, a vessel 3 times larger than any other ship in the fleet. On its bridge, Admiral Xantakor watched the blue planet grow larger on the main screen. Status report, the Admiral commanded. All systems operational, Admiral, reported his second-in-command. Earth has made no attempt to communicate or negotiate. Our scans detect some primitive defensive measures, but nothing that could harm our fleet. Admiral Xantakor made a sound that might have been a laugh. As expected, the destruction of Zeta 9 was clever, but clearly the limit of their capabilities. They used their one weapon and now have nothing left. Sir, another officer called. Out. We're detecting small satellites in Earth orbit. They appear to be simple communication devices. Ignore them, the Admiral ordered. Prepare the first wave for attack. Target their major military installations first, then government centers. Remember, the Council wants this planet intact for resource extraction. Back on Earth, Steve watched the Council fleet enter high orbit. The enemy ships spread out, taking positions above major cities and military bases. They're deploying for a coordinated strike, Colonel Blackwood observed. Classic Zilarian battle formation. And perfectly predictable, Steve replied. He turned to Dr. Carter. Are the satellites ready? Olivia nodded, her fingers moving quickly over her control panel. All 300 satellites show green status. Quantum entanglement networks established. We can activate them simultaneously. Wait for my command, Steve said. Let them think they have the upper hand. On the main screen, they watched as the Council ships began powering up their weapon systems. Energy readings spiked across the fleet. They're about to fire, Colonel Blackwood warned, tension evident in his voice. Steve remained calm. Now, Olivia, activate the network. Dr. Carter pressed a sequence of commands. Around the Earth, 300 seemingly innocent satellites suddenly activated. Each contained a miniaturized quantum disruptor, carefully calibrated to the exact frequency of the Council ship's gravitational systems. The effect was immediate and dramatic. On the display, the Council ships suddenly stopped moving, their weapons powered down. Communication signals between ships ceased. It worked, Olivia whispered, staring at the readings. Their gravitational systems are completely offline. Life support is still functioning, but weapons, propulsion, and communications are disabled. The command center erupted in cheers. President Weber closed her eyes briefly in relief. Colonel Blackwood was already moving to the next phase. Deploying our ships now. 10 small Earth vessels, equipped with modified Zalarian drives, emerged from hidden positions around the moon. They approached the disabled Council fleet, each carrying teams of soldiers and engineers trained to board alien vessels. Steve watched their progress on the tactical display. Focus on the flagship. We need to secure Admiral Xantakor. Aboard the Zalarian flagship, chaos reigned. Emergency lights flashed as crew members scrambled to restore power to critical systems. What happened? Admiral Xantakor demanded, his massive form towering over his officers. Unknown, Admiral, his second-in-command replied. All gravitational systems failed simultaneously. We're detecting the same issue across the entire fleet. Impossible, the Admiral growled. No species has the technology to disable an entire Council battle group at once. An officer at the sensor station looked up in alarm. Admiral, small vessels approaching Earth origin. Before the Admiral could respond, the ship shuddered as magnetic grapples attached to the hull. Minutes later, the bridge doors slid open, and armed humans entered, led by Colonel Blackwood himself. Admiral Xantakor, Blackwood announced. Your ship and fleet are under our control. Earth requests your immediate surrender. The Admiral's yellow eyes narrowed in fury. This is impossible. Humans are primitives. You cannot have developed such technology independently. We didn't, said a new voice. Steve Harrison stepped onto the bridge, flanked by more soldiers. We learned from you. The Council's greatest mistake was thinking that humans couldn't understand your technology. In reality, we understood it better than you do. Admiral Xantakor stared at Steve. Recognition dawned in his eyes. You were the representative, the one the Council dismissed. Yes, Steve confirmed. The one you laughed at. The one you thought wasn't worth protecting. He stepped closer to the massive alien. I want to speak with the Council, now. Seeing no alternative, the Admiral nodded slowly. I will request direct communication. 20 minutes later, Steve stood before a holographic projection of the full Galactic Council. Ambassador Vernath's image dominated the center, his silver fur standing on end with anger. This outrage will not stand, the ambassador snarled. Release our fleet immediately or face the consequences. Steve looked calmly at the projection. Your fleet is disabled but unharmed. Your crews are safe. This demonstration was necessary to show that Earth will not be exploited or conquered. You have committed an act of war against the Council, Vernath declared. Our response will be... What response? Steve interrupted. Your main battle fleet is floating helplessly in Earth orbit, and this is just the beginning of what we can do. He nodded to Dr. Carter, who activated another display. The Council members saw footage from spy satellites positioned throughout Council space. Each showed quantum disruptor devices already planted on key military installations across various Council worlds. As you can see, Steve continued, we have already placed devices throughout your territories. We could disable your defenses with a single command. The Council chamber fell silent. For the first time in millennia, the elder races looked truly shocked. Ambassador Nilara of the Mist Collective spoke up. Perhaps, colleagues, we should reconsider Earth's application for protected status. They have clearly demonstrated they meet our criteria for advanced civilization. Steve shook his head. No, we don't want protected status anymore. Earth demands full membership in the Council, with all rights and privileges. The time for half measures is past. The Council chamber erupted into chaos after Steve's demand for full membership. The holographic projections of the 12 elder species argued amongst themselves while Steve watched calmly from the bridge of the captured Zalarian flagship. Silence. Ambassador Vernath finally roared, bringing the arguing to a halt. He turned his attention back to Steve. Your demands are unprecedented and unacceptable. No species has ever been granted full Council membership without centuries of probation and evaluation. No species has ever held your entire fleet hostage either, Steve replied. The rules have changed. Ambassador Nilara's gaseous form shifted within her containment sphere. I believe we should consider Earth's position. They have demonstrated technological capabilities that qualify them for membership. This is blackmail, hissed another. Council member, a reptilian being with iridescent scales. No, Steve corrected. This is a negotiation between equals, something you refused when I first approached the council. The holographic projections flickered as the council members conferred, privately. After several minutes, they returned their attention to Steve. We require time to consider this situation, Ambassador Viranath said, his voice now carefully controlled. We request a 48-hour recess. Steve shared a glance with Dr. Carter, who was monitoring communications from Earth. She nodded. Slightly. Granted, Steve said. But your fleet remains in our custody during deliberations. As the holographic projection faded, Admiral Xantakor stepped forward. The massive Zalarian had been watching the exchange in silence. You play a dangerous game, human, the Admiral said quietly. The Council has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They will not surrender power easily. Steve turned to the alien commander. Tell me, Admiral, why did you join this mission? Against Earth? Xantakor seemed surprised by the question. I follow the Council's orders. But you must have had reservations, Steve pressed. Attacking a species that had just demonstrated the ability to destroy a moon? The Admiral was silent for a moment. I believed your weapon was limited. A single device that could not be easily replicated. Another underestimation, Steve noted. Does the Council make such mistakes often? Something changed in the Admiral's posture. More frequently in recent centuries, he admitted. The elder races have grown comfortable in their dominance. And how many other species have been denied protection or membership because of this arrogance? Many, Xantakor said softly. Too many. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from Earth. Dr. Carter activated the communication system, and President Weber's face appeared on the main screen. Dr. Harrison, the President said, her expression grave. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected energy buildups on multiple Council worlds. They appear to be preparing weapons platforms. Steve frowned. They're stalling for time while preparing an attack. Colonel Blackwood stepped forward. We should activate our planted disruptors immediately before they can target Earth. No, Steve said firmly. That would cause planetary-scale damage. There must be civilians near those installations. He turned to Admiral Xantakor. Is there a way to contact the Council again through emergency channels? The Admiral hesitated, then nodded. There is a priority communication system for crisis situations. Use it, Steve ordered. Tell them we need to speak immediately. Minutes later, the holographic projections of the Council members reappeared. Ambassador Viranath's image showed obvious surprise at the interruption. Our deliberations are not complete, he began. Your deliberations are a distraction, Steve cut in. We've detected weapons platforms being activated across Council space. Did you think we wouldn't notice? The Council members exchanged glances. This is a standard defensive measure, Viranath claimed. Nothing aimed at Earth. Steve's expression hardened. I will make this simple. We have detected exactly 24 weapons platforms powering up. We will give you 1 hour to shut them down completely. If they remain active after that time, we will demonstrate our capabilities once more. Are you threatening us? Demanded the Reptilian Council member. I am informing you of consequences, Steve replied. 1 hour. The transmission ended. Steve turned to Dr. Carter and Colonel Blackwood. Prepare to activate select disruptors, he ordered. Target only the weapons platforms with minimal power settings, enough to disable them without causing wider damage. And if they don't comply? Asked Blackwood. They will, Steve said. They just need convincing. 57 minutes later, the weapons platforms across Council space began powering down one by one. When the last one deactivated, a new transmission came through from the Council. We will negotiate, Ambassador Viranath said simply, his earlier arrogance now absent. 3 days later, Steve stood in the Council chamber itself, no longer a holographic participant, but physically present. Beside him stood President Weber, now officially Earth's representative to the reformed Galactic Council. The chamber looked different. The elevated platforms that had once separated the elder species from petitioners had been lowered. The 12 original council members now sat at the same level as 5 new members, Earth among them. Ambassador Vernath approached Steve after the formal ceremony ended. The massive Zilarian seemed diminished somehow, his silver fur less lustrous. "Would speak with you privately," he requested. Steve nodded, and they moved to a quiet alcove away from the celebrations. "You have changed 10,000 years of galactic governance in less than a month," Vernath said. "The Council has never faced such a reconfiguration." "It was necessary," Steve replied. "A system that dismisses new species based on prejudice cannot claim to govern fairly." Vernath was quiet for a moment. "I have served as ambassador for 3 centuries. In all that time, I never questioned our methods or traditions." He looked directly at Steve. "How did one human accomplish what entire civilizations could not?" Steve considered the question carefully. "You insulated yourselves from change and innovation. You believed your technology and power were unassailable because no one had successfully challenged you before. And now? What happens to the galaxy under this new council?" "It evolves," Steve said simply, "as all successful systems must." Later, as the Earth delegation prepared to return home, Dr. Olivia Carter joined Steve on an observation deck overlooking the vast expanse of space. "It's hard to believe it's over," she said. "When you returned from that first council meeting, I never imagined we'd end up here." Steve smiled. "It's not over. It's just beginning. We have a lot to learn about being a council race. And they have a lot to learn about humans." "Do you think they understand yet?" Olivia asked. "What their mistake was?" "Some do," Steve replied, thinking of Admiral Xantakor, who had supported Earth's bid for membership and now headed a commission to review other species' applications. "Others will take time, but the most important lesson has been learned." "Which is?" Steve looked out at the stars, thinking of how far humanity had come and how far they still had to go. "Never underestimate a species you know nothing about," he said, "especially not humans." On Earth, the news of full council membership was met with celebration. Schools and universities began teaching courses on galactic politics and alien cultures. The captured council ships were studied and their technology adapted for human use. Trade routes opened to distant stars, and human innovation began spreading through the galaxy. And in history, classes across 1,000 worlds, students learned about the time when the mighty Galactic Council made a fatal mistake by insulting a human, and how everything changed as a result.